Hi, my name's Matt Locke, and this is the Everyday Athlete Podcast, the podcast for the everyday athletes around the world who refuse to be average and who want to create a legacy of health, fitness, and achievement in every aspect of their life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it's time to forge your future. Coach Cam, welcome to the Everyday Athletes Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Matt, thanks for having me. Really excited. I saw your podcast and it looks super awesome, so I'm honored to be a guest.
Well, absolutely. Now, why don't you go ahead and tell our audience, we're recording this very early in the morning in Australia. I think it's afternoon where you are. So why don't you go ahead and tell us where in the world you're sitting and a little bit about yourself.
It is the end of the day here. I'm here in Houston, Texas. We almost got to 100 degrees. Almost, I think it's 97 the last I checked, but it's the end of the day and at the beginning of football season. So super excited about that.
Excellent. And your background, your original background is in American football, correct? College football.
Yeah. So I played college football. I played football and basketball growing up. I ran cross country for a very small window of my life. But yeah, football has been my first love and a gateway for, life and business along the way.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And just for our listeners in Australia and other parts of the world, I just want to clarify that 97 or 100 where you are is about 36 or 38 degrees Celsius. So that's a pretty warm day. Do you have high humidity there, or is it dry heat?
Oh, so it's humid. And so we've got hot as crap and not hot as crap as our two seasons. We don't get like a true fall. So our leaves are green, then they're brown on the floor. There's no transition.
They are official measures of humidity and heat.
Yeah. Hot as crap and not hot as crap. That's it.
Love it. So you started playing college football and then you moved into a coaching role. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was very blessed. I played football at the University of Houston and enjoyed it and spent actually the very early part of my professional career working in an NFL front office at Houston Texans in their marketing department. And, I was smitten by the coaching bug unknowingly. And so I was very blessed. I've had amazing coaches my entire playing career. And it just kind of opened up the door for me to continue, just being around the game. Like kind of, I just spoke earlier, just the love of being around competition kind of just veered me closer into the sideline.
Yeah, excellent. What do you think it was that drew you? You say you had the natural bug for coaching even before you knew it. What were the kind of things you think that were hooks for you that piqued your interest?
So early on, and I'm a bit of a serendipitous guy. Early on, I did feel the burden of obligation when I understood that I was overwhelmingly blessed with really good coaches. And you're in your kind of young, spry 20s, and what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I owed it at some point to try to figure out how to pay it forward for the good coaches that I had in my life. And so, it kind of started with a passion, and I started like literally training kids. So I started a youth training company, 5-Star Academy, and, enjoyed it out in the hot sun like this. And after a couple of months, it's like, well, damn, this is fun, but 6 hours a day in the heat is work. And so that's kind of where I began to evolve and begin to build a bit of a business acumen. But really it was just, I've been poured so much into, how do I pour this back into other people?
Yeah, sure. Interesting. So in hindsight, what were the traits of those coaches that made them so great? What was it that you felt was really, I guess, yeah. Which traits do you think they were?
The first thing I say is the coaches I had that were the most impactful in my life were probably 70% teachers, 30% coach. And so they were truly like craftsmen and marksmen of the sport. And the second side of it is, the 70% teacher, half of that was on-field tactical work. The other half of it was just pouring life skills into me through the vehicle of athletics. I had a coach who taught me the lifespan of a Peruvian butterfly as a means to teach me about pass pro in an offensive scheme. And so the necessity of valuing every moment of a pass rep to protect a quarterback through the life of a butterfly that lives 24 hours. Like who does that?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Some people, for me, it's a sign of true intelligence when someone is able to articulate their message in a number of different ways to be understood by everyone. There's a definite intelligence to that, which I appreciate, and it seems you do too. And actually, I'd love to come back to that maybe if we have time to actually hear that that analogy, how that played out. But
For sure.
so you moved into the coaching role yourself. How does that work? I mean, how do you transition from a player to coach? Because not everyone can do that, of course.
Yeah. So first you hit the player wall, right? You have to get injured to realize that you're no longer a player.
That's a bit of tough love there.
Yeah. So I played semi-professional for a couple of years and got hurt. And I think like most things, I mean, I think, like most things, you find yourself when you climb down from the tree, very close still to the tree. And so as you kind of hang the cleats up and you figure out what do, you look around and say, well, where have I spent most of my time, or where's most of my knowledge, understanding I don't know much. And so, that's kind of the natural kind of space. And then, the unique thing, at least here in Texas, is, there's always a person who's looking to get better. And so, there's an overwhelmingly large amount of professional athletes that retire in Texas and Houston due to, the lack of a state tax and the extremely low cost of living. And so, pretty soon you find that there's, kind of like the everyday athlete, a subculture of guys who just want to get better. And whether they're athletes still, pursuing, or whether they're athletes who transition, there is a sub niche of folks who love to compete.
Yeah, sure. And that coaching role, how long were you in that the footy coaching role?
So I worked as a coach for about 4 to 5 years, training athletes and developing them and really just working on their skill. Then I took a coaching job as a head coach and ultimately as athletic director for 4 years at a local high school. And I was able to string together a number of wins. Ironically enough, basketball has always been my first love. And so while most of my career was spent playing football, I took a head basketball job and an offensive coordinator job. And then pretty early into that, the athletic director position opened up, and, a bit of conversation. I had the opportunity to, bump the football coach. I could have taken his job and hired a basketball coach. But, I think there's more of a legacy, especially as an athletic director, to build with what you have and find success versus, the easy thing to do is a clean house. And so I left that role after 4 years, but I was able to amass a large amount of wins in a relatively small amount of time.
I believe actually I had to practice this word, but you're recognized as the all-time winningest coach. Winningest. It took me a few times before we came on air to actually get that word right. But congratulations.
It's a Texas word. It's a Texas word.
So I'm saying it wrong anyway. I've got the Pommy accent happening.
No, that's it. You nailed it. No, winningest. Yeah. What do you want your kid to be? The winningest.
I got to say, someone who's playing football aesthetically is very different to someone playing basketball. Huh?
I think that as an athlete, it's hips and it's flexion, right? So it's ankle, knees, and waist, and really it's the fluidity to be able to transfer. The school that I coached at is a charter school. It's assigned as a highly underserved pocket, and so our demographics were like 85% Hispanic, 14% Black, and then like one lost white kid that didn't know why he was there. and so a big part of us building that football program was recruiting soccer players over Hispanic soccer players over from soccer. And, urban soccer is a tough sport. I mean, it's a physical sport. And so we would get these soccer kids who historically, to your point, wouldn't be interested in football because they thought it was extremely gladiator until you show them, a cornerback receiver matchup one-on-one, is just as physical as a forward and a striker in soccer. Like if you can play that, you can play over here. And those soccer kids, those hips are just so fluid. I mean, they could just turn and flip those hips so easy. And so we actually, like, our entire secondary came from our soccer field. And so, they understood open space, they understood coverage, and they understood closing on the ball. And so, yeah, I think there's ways to marry up. And I'm really fascinated with cross training, not just in sport, but in business. And that's a big piece of what, the success I've had is being able to take what I've learned here and apply it over here.
Yeah, it's a great segue. I was talking yesterday with a psychologist who specializes in customer and employee experience. So he works very much in the corporate space, or he and his company does. And he also has a sporting background, and he's a great believer in being able to pull the synergies from a competitive sports environment, and even doesn't have to be competitive. Even it can be just the weekend warriors. Let's say into functional training, which is very much our audience. You can draw parallels from what's happening there from a psychological perspective, that sense of community, that sense of unified goal, all of those things, and camaraderie, and how you can draw parallels with those into the business world. And it sounds like you've had a similar experience in being able to do that with your coaching and athletic director roles.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, the first thing I can say is I can definitely see the direct correlation between being in the zone on the playing field and being a closer as a salesperson, right? And I don't claim to be like the world's greatest salesperson, but just the feeling of anticipation of, I know this routine, I know what comes next, you're in my grasp, and I know that if I'm consistent with my performance, that I'm not only going to get the result that I want out of this play or out of this transaction. I'm not a big transactional guy, more of a relational guy. But more importantly, like, I know what it feels like when I'm in the zone and I can hit that shot or close that play or close on that ball. I see that translation directly, but from a macro level, what I did with my sports construction company was I took the background of what I understood in sports construction. I took what I'm naturally good at in servant leadership and community development, and I married them together. And so, that was a birth of my sports construction company.
Sure. Actually, let's just sit there for a moment. When you say sports construction company?
Oh yeah. So I build
that for us. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I build athletic surfaces. So football fields, basketball courts, putting greens, batting cages, kind of you name the surface. And so I had a background in selling it previously, and building it, selling it, working for another organization. But in 2017, during the Lenten season, during the spring, was really just perplexed in my faith and just in where I was business-wise. I was having some success, but I also knew that the part of the servant leadership and, supporting my community was void. And, just kind of had this honest conversation with God, like, where should I be to maximize what I know how to do? And that's where that kind of cross training. And so you know how to build athletic surfaces, you know how to sell it, you know how to get it installed. You also know, some of the underserved pockets of your city and the impact that you can have by putting dollars in that community. Just put them together. And so I started in the residential space, and I would sell basketball courts and putting greens and batting cages and tennis courts in people's backyards. And so, for a batting cage, an $18,000 batting cage, I say, well, hey, I'll sell this to you for $15,000. Can you go write a $2,000 check to this nonprofit? And so, you get your batting cage you want, and I'll take the kind of, I guess, the loss on capitalizing what all I could make. But now there's $2,000 freed up where I can go across town and go do some meaningful work. And what it was not intended to be was a unique value proposition or unique selling proposition. It wasn't a gimmick, very organic. But overnight is, if it's me and another competitor on a project, I found myself overwhelmingly having success because I was so true and so genuine with the intent of driving commerce to make, my city a better place.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Certainly it adds another dimension, doesn't it? When there is a genuine purpose behind any business, That, as you say, it's not a marketing gimmick, it's not a hook, it's none of those things. It's a very genuine, deep-seated purpose ingrained throughout the business. That's powerful stuff, especially if the whole team are on board, and it really is company-wide. It becomes part of the culture of the business. That's yeah, super powerful.
Well, what it turned, no, thank you. And what it turned into for us was, oh, wow, this really works. So being, again, not being too Pollyanna, but, being true to who we are and what we value works so much so to the point that we can look back as a team and say, okay, well, if, creating micro scholarships is important to Coach Cam, for kids first and family to go to college. And if, feeding families for Thanksgiving is important for you, and adopting families for Christmas is important for you, and, refurbishing prom dresses is important for you, we were able to create really a holistic season of giving around the folks that worked within, my organization, and kind of, regurgitate it out into our community and create a really deep impact just by being true to what was important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to name him. Brad, who owns a local company here called IT Basecamp, who have been a long-time supporter of the Bay Games, good friend. We're in the surf club together and so on. And I really liked his approach with his business, and he employs about 18 people. And his approach to it all is there's enough for everyone. Like, I don't need it all. And so it's interesting to watch his business in operation and with his staff as well. And that's really an ingrained part of the business. There's not the trying to scrape every dollar they can out of every contract, every customer, just so that Brad can build a bigger house, He's not motivated by that. And it's just a nice ethos, isn't it? There is enough for everyone, actually. And each of us don't need it all. Often we need far less than we think we do.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that where so many of our athletes who migrate into business flip the switch a bit misguided is so much of what we do is a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't see business or success as a zero-sum game. I mean, if we're on the same team, or even if we're, competitors across the street, if we're selling burgers, I don't have to outsell you to have my success. Like, what I'm looking for is my success. Now, whether that number is, higher or lower than yours is something different. But if my goal is to create amazingly delicious burgers, like, that's my race. And I think that's a lot of what translates into individual, athletes, individual sport athletes so well is I'm just running my race. I mean, every individual athlete enjoys a PR over a medal, right? I could be in a slow heat and medal. That doesn't mean I performed well. It really becomes, what is my best?
Yeah, it's a bit overused these days, but I quite like the term. It seems to fit in, that whole theory of stay in your lane. Just run your own race. That's it.
Just run your race. Yeah.
Now, you sound like a busy guy. You've got the construction company, sports construction company, and you're consulting as well to business owners, right? You're helping other business owners to improve their businesses, their lives, I guess, because it's all around wealth, health, and success. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you approach those subjects? Because most small business owners, and I'm assuming that it's small business owners, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it is small business owners, they're busy people. They're juggling a million balls all at once. They're running around, very busy in their work life. There's a family life always to consider, of course, and their own health and wellness. I'm interested how you approach that, especially in a year. I mean, we're recording this in 2020. It's a tough year globally with the pandemic that's touched every aspect of all of our lives. But you're based in the US, and the US for sure has been hit hard by the pandemic. So I'm not to make this a COVID discussion, but using that somewhat as a pre-frame, given how busy business owners are these days, just trying to make ends meet, keep it afloat. How do you approach that?
I think so. It's a really good question. The approach is similar to a freshman going through an off-season program, again, regardless of the sport. You can take some pre-workout and run around the gym, and you're not going to get bigger, faster, or stronger, right? So it really is about having a schematic. And so whether, no matter what your scheme is for you to improve or for you to get, add bulk, add lean, lean out, whatever it is, to have a schematic or a framework for success, no coach would go into a game without a game plan. And so it's just simply just, what is your game plan to make the most of your day? And, the idea really came about. I wrote my first book last fall, with Alpha Redefined. It's about servant leadership. And I did a small promo tour, about 6 cities. And the one question I got asked more than anything was, how do you do so many things in one day? And I just would shrug and say, I win the first quarter of my day. I have systems and protocols in place. And they're not overly rigid, right? I mean, you have to be flexible, especially during COVID. You got to be flexible. And I typically get up at 3:30 to get to the gym at 4. Well, the gyms don't open, until 5, at least here now. And so, there has to be a bit of fluidity, but ultimately, like any other athlete, if you don't have a game plan, you're planning to fail. So, I say the short answer is, identifying busy from productive, and those are cousins. They look alike, but they're not alike. But then, prioritizing, what it takes for you to be successful.
Absolutely. So I'm interested. I love the fact that you boil it down, not only just to a day-by-day blow, but actually you're talking about the first quarter of the day as being, I guess, the setup for the rest of that day. So how does that look? I mean, I assume there's intention around the activities. I mean, it's your show. Let's go. You talk me through the ethos of the first quarter of your day.
Yeah, so I break the first quarter of your day up into a number of different spaces. And the first one is, literally when you open your eyes, what is the first thing that you say to yourself, or that you say, to God, or whatever being that you call upon? And, as a person in transparency who can struggle with anxiety, works way too much, sometimes stress is a challenge. The first thing when I open my eyes, I ask myself, do I need grace? Or can I call on gratitude? And so the mornings where I feel the anxiety, I feel the urge to check my email or my voicemail, I know I have some to-dos from yesterday, I simply call on grace. And I'm just thankful for, waking up. I'm thankful for standing up. And, I have a little bit of back pain now. And it's like, I can feel my back. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the toothpaste. I'm thankful for my family as I leave out of my house. And it gives me a sense of calm as I get ready to start my day. Well, the other side of it is, if you've got great momentum, you closed a deal last night, things are going great, you're calling on grace. And so, I mean, you have gratitude. So I have so much gratitude for the deal I closed last night and the momentum that's going to lead me into, going to get a lift in and going to get a run in. And so, it really does start with understanding where your energy is for that day, knowing that can transfer either side on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I guess here we're talking about mindfulness. Here we're talking about actually taking the time to stop and reflect on all of these subjects. I guess what's happening in life is a bit like, meditation, where it gets you just to sit and be present and feel the floor under your feet and your hands on your legs, that kind of stuff. A deep-seated sense of mindfulness. So, I mean, how does that set you up for the next steps? What do they look like?
So what we literally do is like walk through like those first 4 hours. And so you've gotten up, you've had some time with God, you've reflected, you're now headed to go, have some type of physical activity. And no matter what that physical activity looks like, right? So whether it's a stretch, whether it's yoga, whether it's an intense lift. And so I typically lift for 45 minutes to an hour every day. And then, come behind that with 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes of cardio, just depending. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm agile for my size, but, I'd rather not have to run more than 30 minutes. If I can't catch you in 30 minutes, I'm not going to catch you.
We talked a little bit off air about your previous weight. What do you weigh in at the moment, if you don't mind saying?
So I'm 6'4", I'm 265 now. I was 255 before COVID. So I've got just 10 more COVID pounds to drop. And the one thing I can say, most people are fussing about their COVID weight. If you did not have fun, putting on your COVID weight, I had a blast putting on my COVID weight.
Yeah.
So I've got about 10 more pounds to get back to kind of my normal weight.
So, you're a chunk lighter at the moment than I guess your footy weight is what I think we talked about, the 300 pounds or 136 kilograms.
Yeah. So I was,
you're a big guy.
Well,
big guy, 6'4".
So I played at 250, 245, 260 kind of window. Yeah. But after I got through playing, I ballooned up. I was plus 300 pounds. Okay. I was 300 pounds in 2017. And I re-engaged in my physical fitness journey in 2015, I'd say. Yeah. And you know how it is, it's a process. And so you're lifting and you're working out based upon the mental of you being your best 10 years ago. You're using outdated technique and outdated workouts and frameworks that you kind of remember. I think we used to do this, and Lord knows you're not running as much as you should, getting the cardio you should. And then, diet, like what's that, right? And so the first 2 years, I'd say, was just falling back in love with the gym. I think I had a pretty strong detachment from working out when I got through playing. I just didn't do it. And so as I began to kind of get in shape, and again, you're a competitor. So like, what do you want that body to look like? And some of it was, hey, amigo, your body is not going to look at 30 something how it did at 19. Like, let's just have a really honest conversation about that. And so how do you, reframe and reshape the best version of yourself that you can? And this also coincided with some pretty major setbacks in my personal life. I lost my job. I faced a pretty tough financial situation. And, as a coach, I used to always say, like, you're going to have a hard time beating me, but you won't beat me twice the same way. Like, you're not going to do that. And so I say what I call my abyss. When I walked into my abyss, or the height of my abyss at the beginning of 2015, I was not in shape. I was making poor dietary choices, making bad lifestyle choices. And I literally made the choice to rebuild and redesign myself. And a lot of that had to do with, physical fitness as being an anchor of who I am.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly glad you found your way back. It seems to be quite common that for professional or semi-professional athletes, and athletes who do it for a living, they do it full time. I guess naturally, when you stop doing that, when you step out of that world, you're stepping out of the whole support infrastructure as well, the whole ecosystem, not just the actual training and the playing, but everything that the infrastructure that goes around it. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of support in place to help people transition from that role into. I mean, it's similar for former Olympians, world champions, certainly team sports in particular, I think. Yeah, it's a shame. And you can see how easy it would be to either keep eating the same volumes without the same training volume. And of course, we understand what that, the impact will be, or to simply just go hands in the air, I'm just going to go off the rails for a bit.
Just let it go. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's always funny, and you kind of age yourself, and you begin to have like the class reunions and the team reunions, and you see like the All-American, or the guy who played professional sports, and it's like what did you do? Like who did you eat? And some of it is and a big part of my message when I was coaching at the high school level is athletics, you have to have an ego separator of what your performance is on the playing field and who you actually are. And I didn't have that skill set built into me. And so when I finished playing, athlete was something I put down, not understanding that it's a lifelong journey of physical fitness and well-being. And it was kind of an ego crosswire of, yes, I've put working out and putting heavy stress on my body and lifting extremely heavy weights and running to, exhaustion down. Instead of picking the best versions of it up, I had to go back and pick those things up, because ultimately, that sacrifice really anchors who you are. When you're training and competing, I think that's when you truly feel the most liberated, no matter what level of performance it is. And, your skill set, your PR. I mean, especially, here, there's a lot of perceived, either not body shaming, but like strength shaming, ego shaming in, like CrossFit and just like commercial gyms. And it's like, you don't know my struggle, bro. You know what I mean? And so some of it is just being isolated into who you are. I faced that pretty significantly. I ran a 5K this year. My neighbor tricked me into it. So my neighbor's the wife said, "Hey, I'm going to run a 5K, sign up, let's go do it." And she didn't do it. She didn't do it. She backed me out. Yeah. I'm a competitor. So yeah, I signed up. I'm doing it. I mean, it was $30 or whatever. So it wasn't even about the money, but like I put my name on the line. I'm going to do it. And so I began to alter my lift and my run, workouts for about 6 weeks, kind of getting into that kind of, shape to be able to run. I call it a marathon. Some people laugh at me when I say that, but like I said, 260 something pounds running a couple of miles. Come on now, that is a marathon, right? Like, yeah, whatever. But no, the point I'm making is, the runner community is so supportive, and they were literally like, come with what you have, understand how far you can physically, get yourself to go, and just give it the best you got. Like, let's not kill yourself on your Apple Watch and check for, your pace, and just give the best you have. And I think that the runner community is such a liberated community within the sports niche, because, it doesn't matter where you are, where you come from. They just want you to try and glorify and accept that you've given the best that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm honest, I don't think that's exclusive to running. That's my experience in the functional fitness and functional training realm. Certainly that's the spirit of the Bay Games and everything we do. For our events, you don't have to qualify. There's none of that. You all are welcome, all ages, all abilities. And the sense of camaraderie is something that's quite magical. And that's my experience in, as I say, in the gym environment as well, which the gym environment for me is, let's say, F45, CrossFit, boutique gyms that are into functional training. And the sense of community and camaraderie is just magical. And it's empowering and liberating, to use your word as well. It's, I appreciate it. And the running community, for sure, they also are that way inclined. And it's that sense of community that I think can help elevate all of us. And we all have the power to elevate others as a result, by being by playing our part in that community and supporting those around us, regardless of what they can run, lift, whatever it is. I'm certainly no hero in the functional training world. It's a long journey of learning ahead, as always, for everyone, but loving it. And it's not lost on me the power that we each have within those communities to play our part. I'm conscious of time, Coach Cam. So I know that you've got your course, which will be available either very soon, or by the time we air this, it might even be available already, called Win the First Quarter of Your Day. It's a playbook for wealth, health, and success. I look forward to engaging with that. If people want to know more about that, or want to reach out and make contact with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media platforms, Coach Cam Cares, on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I guess people still use Facebook. And then, I don't know. And then the course is CoachCamCourses.com. And yes, it's available now. And we've gotten some really cool feedback from it. The biggest takeaway is, I know that I need structure in the first half of my day. And really, I'd say this kind of in closing, what we're building out in the first 4 hours of our day is the off season, right? And so championships are literally won in the off season because you leverage your success. And so by creating a snowball of wins before you get to your desk, is really what I found to be the key to maximizing, the 24 hours that we have.
That's such a good way of looking at it, and the fact we have 24 hours.
That's right.
9 to 5, eh? But no, very good. Well, certainly all of the links and the various contact points I'll put in the show notes. But certainly I'd like to, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I appreciate what you're offering to the world, what you bring to the world. Certainly that you have a certain energy around you, which I have personally appreciated in meeting you today. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to watch your journey unfold. And yeah, obviously wish you every success in the world.
Matt, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I love the show. I love the energy around everything about creating consistent athletes on a day in and day out basis and bringing the A game is what the world needs for sure. So thanks.
Absolutely. Until next time. Well, there you have it. Thanks very much for listening. And if you've enjoyed this, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell icon so you get notified every time we upload a new episode. And if you think that one of your training buddies would also enjoy this, go ahead and share it with them right now. With that said, thank you once again. And as always, be brave, have fun, and lead by example.